Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this episode of Fortitude. I'm Alda Leu Dennis. I am the general partner at Initialized Capital. And with me today is Ooshma Garg, founder and CEO of Gobble. Gobble provides a fresh, healthy meal kit that can be cooked in one pan in 15 minutes or less. A happy customer myself. Thank you so much for providing nutrition to my family and joining us. Can you talk a little bit about what made you want to start Gobble? I know it's been a number of years. I think you started it almost 12 years ago, and talk a little bit about your journey to get to where you are today.
Yes, absolutely, Alda. You know, it's not polite to talk about a woman's startup age. But yes, I started Gobble 12 years ago. I was fresh out of college. I think why I have been able to get through so many obstacles and last this long is because I started Gobble with a purpose that's very near and dear to me. The company is a bit of a Valentine to my dad, who would make home-cooked food for us every night when I was growing up. And coming to college, I started just kind of, eating fried foods, like eating junk every day. And, I lost a sense of health, but I also lost a sense of like home and connection and belonging and culture, and all of these intangibles that come from food, and specifically a family dinner. I started Gobble to kind of like replace my parents as an adult and help my friends and I get a fresh home-cooked meal every night.
So having started Gobble a number of years ago, we won't repeat the number of how many years ago it was. Talk a little bit about your fundraising journey and capital along the way. And I know that recently with COVID, there was another inflection point with the company.
In my experience, each startup's fundraising journey is a little bit like their life journey. You're going to have moments of luck and you're going to have moments of hardship. So our seed round was kind of like a Silicon Valley dream come true. We had like who's who investors from all the different venture funds. It came together within a matter of days over text message between, Silicon Valley veterans and luminaries. And I was on cloud 900. And then, subsequently when we were trying to raise our Series A or Series B, it was a harder process and market conditions had changed. We've been through the good times and the bad times through all the fundraisings. And the company raised seed, Series A, Series B. We went out to go pitch for a Series C financing. And in that process, which I'm happy to dig into, we ended up not fundraising and instead turning the company profitable, which led to ultimately its success and made the company multiple times more valuable than it was.
That's amazing. I remember talking to you during that Series B raise process, Series C raise process, and I believe it was in 2019. I actually think that that's, what makes you such a formidable founder today is having gone through that really tough period of time and showing the fortitude and coming out at the other side. I think it was around 2019. If you could talk a little bit more about what your mindset was going into the Series C raise, and then what made you decide to double down on making the company profitable.
We were in the $50 to $100 million revenue range. We were receiving a Series C term sheet that had a valuation which was, multiples of that revenue. And overnight, our term sheet turned from hundreds of millions of dollars to less than $10 million as a valuation. It was all based on external factors, with a specific venture fund. And also venture capitalists leveraging the fact that oftentimes by the end of a company's fundraising period, they don't have that much cash left. Mm-hmm. So from a revenue perspective, they could be worth $200 million. And then from a cash perspective, one could hold them hostage and say, hey, let's recap the company, value this business at $5 million and charge you 10 or 20% for every $1 million we give you because you only have 2 weeks of runway left.
And I don't think we're talking in hypotheticals, and we certainly don't have to name any particular venture capital funds. But I mean, what you're describing to me sounds like predatory behavior. Obviously, no one has the obligation to give you money.
Right.
But having made an initial offer at a higher valuation and then realizing that they had leverage because of the company's cash situation, changing that does strike me as being somewhat unfair, at least.
Yeah, I think after seeing, everything under the sun happen and just challenges beyond my dreams, I have a bit of a Zen attitude about it. On the one hand, I do think that, reputations like echo long after any action. So to have a long-term reputation, you may, that's where that currency of trust and integrity comes into play, and honoring a term sheet or, discussions that have been going on. But on the flip side, some people have the reputation of, all's fair in love, war, and
business,
venture capital.
Yeah.
And there's nothing illegal about it. You can change your mind, and it's the company's job to maintain their own leverage and protect themselves.
Okay, I get that. And what was going through your mind when, the terms changed so dramatically? Who did you talk to? How did you decide, you know what, screw it. I'm not taking these crappy terms. We're going to make our own way.
Yes. I can see both sides now. But at the time, I was very, very upset and shocked. And that action was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and made me realize that to the extent we were always relying on external capital, we would never be fully in charge of our own destiny. And, we wouldn't be able to guarantee our own success. I assessed all the options, which were at the time to, recap the business or accept this, deep insult of evaluation, to, raise debt financing or find another financing source, but with only 2 or 3 weeks of money in the bank, or to, which seemed like a non-option and not something that most startups consider, to see if there was any way possible to extend my runway and potentially even achieve some kind of profitability or break even on the little money that I had left. I think one thing that we did well was we left no stone unturned and no option, not fully considered. I was, emailing all of our investors. I was meeting with Gary. I was, just getting everything on the table at that point. But somewhere deep inside me, this experience showed that I wanted to have. I never wanted to experience this again. I wanted to know that, we had control of our own success, and we were going to get there regardless. So simultaneous to speaking with external funding resources, we started scrutinizing every single cost in the business. The biggest cost at the time was our marketing expense. I think if you are, a high-growing tech business, then of course you have your engineering, your finance, your HR, et cetera. You're growing fast, so you're investing in that. We were investing over $1 million a month in marketing. I pulled that cord, and that started saving, $250K a week, like right off the top.
And so you cut marketing from $1 million to zero, basically.
Yes, $1 million to zero. Within 3 months, it was it was $10K or something just for, some prepaid marketing expense that we had. But
and that's scary because, that translates into taking growth from, whatever number it is to potentially what it ended up being.
Yes, the financials don't lie. When I look back over the 10 years, you can really understand our entire business and my mentality and every decision I made by really looking at the P&L, and when we were investing in growth and when we were pulling back and so on and so forth. So in a way, it was an extremely ballsy move because it left the business naked. We weren't able to just refill our bucket or, hide the churn.
Yeah. But what I think you found, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping to the punchline here, is that your bucket wasn't as leaky as people might have suspected it had been with $1 million of marketing spend a month. And, you've published articles about how your retention has been, the strongest in the business. And so I think that in the end was, what made the company pull through that period of time.
In the analysis of trying to turn the company profitable, we made every scenario just to see what would happen. So we said, well, what if we retain 80% of our users after 9 months, or 75, 50, 25, et cetera? And when would we progressively make different decisions? If all the users turned out and we only retained 25% of users, we wouldn't be bringing in enough revenue to cover our business or to make this a real business. So at X point, we would then need to begin the bankruptcy and shutdown process. Luckily, we retained over 70% of our revenue by the end of the year. Intellectually, and kind of from an insider baseball perspective, I found this to be a fascinating experiment.
Yeah.
Because I think when investors are assessing subscription businesses, we take shortcuts or we use, simple equations to understand LTV or, or churn. But really, it's a complex matter. It's a layer cake of many different cohorts, and they're all churning at different rates. As it turned out, we had, an extremely loyal base built up at the foundation. So any monthly churn number or simple equation would not have predicted the result.
And I mean, I remember this period of time, and you told me that you were meeting with your accounting person once a week.
Yes.
To basically decide which bills to pay. And, when you told me that, I really thought to myself, like, this is a real company.
Yes.
Right? It's not just chasing growth or chasing some vanity metrics. It's a real skill to figure out how to manage your balance sheet and produce a company that, forgive me if I'm revealing too much, but, ended up figuring out how to be profitable.
Yes.
And you figured out how to be profitable before COVID.
Right.
And then I think the tailwinds of COVID, which have been not great for certain businesses, were actually, fortunate for what Gobble does. And certainly during COVID, I found myself becoming sick of my own cooking and wanting to feel and taste different flavor profiles. And I was able to get that through Gobble. I was able to get, Malaysian noodles or, curry beef. And that was great because I am not going to be grinding, all the ingredients to make curry myself. But so COVID was helpful for your business. But even before that, you really had to sit down and run a real business profitably, which is, I think, something that is a rare trait in Silicon Valley.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do think it's rare, and I think it's something that should be less rare. We are running businesses after all. We're not running kind of like, schemes or subsidized services that like have nice offices and tricolor quinoa. Every founder is going to have their own story. But for me, I think it also comes from my background, maybe being a female founder. I think for me, I always made sure that there was substance behind the sizzle and that was taken care of.
Yeah. And then let's talk about, during COVID, which I think accelerated or lowered the cost of customer acquisition for a lot of, consumer businesses that could be consumed in the home. How did you lean into that?
Prior to COVID, in our industry, when Blue Apron went IPO in 2017, that sucked the oxygen out of the room for all meal kit companies for 3 years, 17, 18, and 19. It made it very hard to get any kind of, multiple or success or access to capital. Markets don't turn so quickly. When there's a downturn, it lasts for many years. COVID, the need that came from it when the grocery store supply chains were hammered or being compromised, the surge in orders that came for it was a great boon to Gobble. And we had just turned profitable. I had just cut out all the fat of the business in H2 of 2019. So we were, thinking about working out. Like we were lean, we were like agile, we were ready to go. And as soon as that surge hit, we were a company with exactly the necessities, with no BS and no fat. So we were able to deliver. We didn't turn down one box or one order, and we absorbed the surge. And it came at the right time for us. I think that was really great. And overall, COVID accelerated consumer behaviors that were already happening and accelerated them by 5 or 10 years. So delivery in general and direct to consumer, all different age groups and markets became much more used to ordering things online and, having a center around the home.
With the company being lean and lower customer acquisition costs, let's talk about where we are today with the company. Has the supply chain shortfall impacted the company? And, where do we go from now that, we're a healthy, profitable company?
Well, a few things. First of all, there are still, echoes of the supply chain issues during COVID. A number of businesses went out of business because they couldn't, make it to the last mile. And now we're kind of in a world war, and there are, there's impact on flights, on trade. So the neat thing about Gobble is that we've always had a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. We have multiple suppliers for any SKU that we're sending you to your home. So when one supplier is impacted, let's say even by something like a recall, which might happen in the food industry, we have another one to go to while that facility is shut down. So every part of the stack that makes up Gobble, we thought through, should we have it in-house or out of house? And at different stages of the business, there might be a different answer. But for now, us managing the final assembly, only some of the cooking steps, and then it is the best route. We have multiple suppliers on the back end, and we also have multiple couriers on the front end to make sure that order does get to our customer.
I mean, I appreciate how candid you've been about the ups and downs that you've been through at Gobble. And, as we sort of conclude, I would love to just leave you with, and leave our audience with sort of some thoughts that you have on what messages and advice you would give to yourself, back when you started this company several years ago after your first startup exited, and how they should be thinking about, building a real business and a business that can persist and sustain.
Well, the first thing I would say is that, one person and one founder really can bend reality to their will. And it just takes that unbridled confidence to do so. There'd be times when, I wasn't as confident advocating just for myself as a solo founder. So the hack that I used to walk into a meeting and just have a perception of zero doubts would be what I call standing in my truth. I'd basically be ultra confident in representing my mission and my purpose and my team and the people that are going to benefit from this. And that really was key and critical to breaking out as an early startup into one that was able to raise the money and hire the people and make the reality that I wanted. The other thing that I would mention, just harking back to what we've been talking about today, is in Silicon Valley, a lot of people know the phrase cash is king. But what I like to say is that cash is king and profit is freedom. So if I'm to build another business going forward, I would make sure that profit isn't just a pipe dream, but something that that we have a plan for, that we can achieve from the get-go, so that we can be unstoppable.
Spoken like a true later stage CEO. Thank you so much, Ooshma Garg, CEO and founder of Gobble, for spending time with us today. Hope that you have enjoyed hearing about the Fortitude and how she's used that to make Gobble a successful company that is now on to bigger and brighter horizons. Best of luck with you on your next adventure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Alda.